Hello, good to be back. Like my little bobblehead, he's new. He's very cute. Do you know who he is? If you know, put it in the comments below, and if you're right, I'll give you a shout out in the next video. If that's like a thing. Like if you don't want to shout it, that's cool too. You could just write it. Okay. Also, are you an INTP, or maybe you know an INTP? I'm just curious about their curiosities. Let me know in the comments below there. And as you already know, those of you who've seen my videos, my husband Nafe tests as an INTP. And honestly, when reading the description of INTPs, I am convinced he's like the epitome of INTP. The INTP personality reminds me a bit of a curious cat. You know what they say about curious cats? Gets them stuck in the vase, apparently. So stuff is interesting. Stuff's a weird word. You ever say a word a few times and it sounds odd, and then you like second guess if it's a real word? I do that. Okay, that was a weird start. Sorry. So I'll be more specific. I like stuff that's interesting, and I, in particular, like nature stuff, and so does Daffy. Like, for instance, ants. There's no denying watching ants can be amusing, but can you imagine spending an entire day looking at ants, researching ants? It's all about ants. Okay. Actually, a day is not that bad. I could do a day. But how would you feel about an entire summer? Well, you don't have to imagine, because I'm going to tell you what it was like to have ants as the primary focus of your life for 2 months. Formicarium, that is a sciencey word for ant farm. And myrmecology is a branch of entomology, which is, of course, the study of insects. And that's someone that studies the behaviors of ants. Basically, you love ants. I'd say myrmecology is kind of a classic nerdy pastime, like collecting stamps or bird watching. Of both, I am guilty. But ants, I never really thought about researching them or observing ants really until we had River come stay with us the spring of 2018. One of my closest friends from England sent her 14-year-old son over to spend a few weeks with us. He's a spirited young man who we absolutely enjoyed the company of. So we hadn't seen River in a long time, so we were getting to know him better, and what we realized is one of his keener interests was collecting ants. And so he likes going out into nature, finding an ant species, and then locating the queen, bringing her back home and sort of setting up house, so to speak, and allowing the queen to get comfortable enough to start dropping eggs and begin her colony. So it was River that introduced us to ants, and my take on it was, hey, that's pretty neat, and then I moved on. Nafe, on the other hand, saw it a little differently. He immediately found it fascinating, and he added it to his bucket list of things to explore list. Oh,
It's a bucket list of things to explore, to explore. It's a bucket list of things. It's a bucket list of things. It's a bucket list of things to explore.
Look at that. That was fun. Catchy little tune. So yeah, Nafe has a bucket list like a lot of people do, but his is kind of unique. He doesn't really have it written out to check off as a potential destination, for example, like seeing the Grand Canyon or maybe doing something like skydiving, normal stuff. No, he's not normal. No. He has his list in more of a spontaneous, haphazard fashion. You see, if he sees a subject that comes into his peripherals, he wants them to stay in his peripherals unless he's ready to focus on it right away. If he's not, he wants it to just sort of sit there and until he's like ready to learn about it. So he'll either take a mental note and sort of stick it in his little list, or he'll say it out loud. He'll say that he's adding it to his bucket list of things to explore list.
List of things to explore, to explore. It's a bucket list of things. It's a bucket
Okay.
list of things. It's a
Okay,
bucket
gee,
list
is
of
that
things to explore,
is that
to
banner
explore.
thing and theme song going to happen every time? So I also wanted to mention that we have this thing at home where Daffy will just say out loud, spoilers. We all know to stop talking about a subject or a movie or whatever it is that he finds fascinating. Okay. Don't get me started on movies, honestly. He counts the title of a movie a spoiler, and he will never watch trailers. Like, if he does, he watches like the first few seconds and then he stops. It's just how his head works. He wants to discover things without any interference or like any other interpretation, and sort of like he feels that's going to poison the well and spoil it for him. So Nafe puts the ant exploring on his bucket list of things to explore list.
Things to explore, to explore. It's a bucket
Okay,
list of
no,
things to
enough.
explore,
This is
to
okay. This is
explore.
getting
It's a
old.
bucket list of
Please,
things.
enough. You know, I have this inner voice when I see this list, this banner pop. Whoa, whoa, no, get up there. Not even. No, I'm kind of getting tired of it. Anyways, when I see Nafe's eyes glaze over and I recognize that he's ready to explore a new subject, I have this inner voice that narrates, and he's gone. Because, you know, that's it. He's absorbed and he's focused and he's obsessed. I won't see him for a while. I know what happens when my husband finds a subject fascinating. Hours, days, weeks, even months will be dedicated to that particular interest, and all else kind of sits on a shelf collecting dust. Come on, you just... Before we knew it, almost an entire month had passed by, and it was time for River to head back to England. Bye, River. It's been great having you. Niagara Falls was a blast. You are the master of table hockey. Bye. So the first weekend after River went back to England, Nafe and I got in the car to go visit my parents. They live like an hour out of town. So just before pulling into the driveway, we see this big bug sort of wandering up the walkway, and we were surprised because you could actually see it from the car. So that's got to be a pretty big bug. And we get up close to it, and Nafe recognizes it's a carpenter ant, and it still has its wings on. So we rush inside, and I ask my parents for a container so we can catch it. And so Nafe runs back out, and he actually caught the ant. Oh yeah, there. See, check it out. That's the video that we took the day of that we were there and catching the ant. Look what it's going to do. See, it's going to take off its wings. That's so cool, right? The female queen ant will do that when she finds herself in a place where she figures she's gonna, hunker down and have babies. So she'll get comfortable and she'll start making her colony, which is super cool. I think that's kind of when I started to find the topic of ants quite interesting. Once we got home, Nafe rigged up a makeshift shelter for her. Basically like a small tube with a cotton ball on the end of it with water like in the cotton ball so she'd have water to get to, and a warming blanket to keep her a specific temperature. So ants for Nafe became a bit of an obsession after this point and taking up a whole lot of his time. A lot more than I'd like, but he spent hours researching, observing, and finding new ants. In fact, even in the middle of the night after rainfall, because apparently it's a good time to find them. I mean, I'd wake up wondering where the hell he is, and then I'd fall back to sleep and have nightmares about giant ants chasing me. So the ant obsession at least got us going on walks together. It was kind of innocent in the beginning. He'd suggest we go on this walk, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He wants to go on a romantic walk with me. And then he hands me this bag of cotton balls and a sack full of jars and tubes and ant paraphernalia. Yeah, so I was basically his myrmecology assistant. So that was, that was a lot of fun. He usually hates having any attention drawn to him, as do I. But yeah, that's totally dismissed when he comes to picking up ants suddenly. I mean, he was walking down the road like a busy highway, and he's not paying any attention to anything going around him, and he's like bent over like he's got some kind of back problem, and he's just like walking along bent over picking up ants, looking like a real oddball. Watching him take on a new subject and becoming a bit of an expert overnight is insightful and very inspiring. I do have to pull in the reins on occasion when I see him veering too far off course and neglecting too many things. I kind of have to put my foot down. Ants kind of took over my kitchen counter for a while. He had ants in jars and in little glass formicariums, and they occasionally got out and were like wandering around on the countertop. So that aspect of things was not great. Wasn't enjoying that much. I wasn't in the mood to have ants in my food. In our office area, at least on his side of the desk, there was like ant paraphernalia everywhere. Tubes, cotton balls, jars with ants in them, not to mention the occasional expired queen ant that was just like laying there next to his keyboard with a toothpick like super glued to it and pinned into his mouse pad. Like it's not nice. And glancing over his desk area on most days is never great, but I'd say the ant months were like the worst. Between ant carcass and the monumental gum formations and sunflower shells, like his desk was really gross. It was ganky looking. Oh, the gum formation, you might wonder. That's basically chewed up gum that he sort of puts on top of each other on a wrapper next to his keyboard or something. And maybe he does it to avoid putting it in the bin, and he's like going to do it later. Everything's later. He's going to do things later. They often end up in geometric shapes and towers and castles. It's interesting to see what they form in the interim of going from his desk to the bin. And let's pretend we never saw it, okay? Because the guy who lives in his mind doesn't often see things around him. He doesn't actually get what's going on his desk. It's just part and parcel of Nafe. And, I'll eventually clean it up, and I get to be rewarded with him coming back to his desk and not even noticing that it's clean. Yeah. For weeks, I kept thinking ants were like crawling on me. And sometimes they were actually crawling on me. So, I totally had good reason to be paranoid. I'm used to him obsessing over a topic, and I've come to realize it's just part of his personality, and there's little I can do to change it. It's either you fight it or you join him. What's that saying again? You if you can't beat him, join him, something like that. Anyways, I just embrace it with him usually, and it's I know what it's like. I've been obsessive over topics as well, and I can get totally focused on something and forget about everything else. So I do get it. And yeah, so this obsession lasted a whole summer. So now you know what it's like to live ants for a summer. In fact, a year and a half later, and we still have ants in the house. It's kind of unusual for him to have a hobby this long, but maybe it's because it's pretty low maintenance, really. Ants are a fascinating subject. Actually, I think we could learn a lot from the study of ants, and I recommend you look it up. Check in my description there. I have some links you might be interested in seeing. Look, just don't get so caught up that you miss picking your kid up from the dentist appointment to try and grab that queen ant just out of reach on the telephone pole outside your house. Because, yeah, that's not good. See ya. Oh, seriously, dude, there's an ant in my latte. Actually, kind of looks like he's doing the backstroke. Look, come here, check this out. Please subscribe, because I really enjoy telling these stories, and I'd like to continue doing it.